Have you ever wondered why some people leave you feeling drained while others energize you? The answer lies in a fundamental psychological pattern that governs every single human interaction. Today we're diving deep into the psychology of givers and takers. And by the end, you'll know exactly which one you are. But here's the twist. The answer might surprise you more than you think. In every relationship, there's an invisible exchange happening constantly. Some people are natural givers, always offering support, time, and energy to others. Others are takers, focusing primarily on what they can get from every interaction. But this isn't about good versus evil or right versus wrong. It's about understanding the psychological mechanisms that drive these behaviors. Research shows that most people aren't purely one or the other. We exist on a spectrum, shifting between giving and taking based on circumstances. Let's start with givers, because they're often celebrated in society as the ideal. Givers derive satisfaction from helping others and contributing to their well-being. They feel genuine joy when they see someone benefit from their actions. Psychologically, givers often have high levels of empathy and emotional intelligence. They can sense what others need, sometimes even before those people know themselves. But here's where it gets complicated and interesting. Not all giving comes from the same place psychologically. Some givers operate from abundance, giving because they genuinely have energy to spare. Others give from depletion, using giving as a way to feel worthy or loved. This second type is actually compensating for deep-seated insecurities. They believe their value lies only in what they can do for others. This creates an exhausting cycle where they give until they're completely empty. When giving becomes pathological, it transforms into something psychologists call self-sacrifice schema. These givers can't say no, even when saying yes hurts them deeply. They constantly prioritize others' needs while ignoring their own screaming internal voice. This isn't kindness anymore, it's a psychological survival mechanism. They fear that if they stop giving, they'll be abandoned or rejected. The irony, people often take advantage of this unlimited generosity without realizing the damage. And the giver, they secretly resent those they help even while continuing to help. This creates toxic relationships built on unspoken expectations and hidden resentment. The giver feels unappreciated while the receiver remains oblivious to the growing tension. Now let's talk about takers, who often get unfairly villainized in these discussions. Takers prioritize their own needs and focus on what they can extract from situations. But understanding why someone becomes a taker is crucial to this conversation. Many takers develop this pattern as a protective mechanism in childhood. Perhaps they grew up in environments where resources, attention, or love were scarce. They learned that if they don't take, they won't receive anything at all. For some takers, it's not malicious intent, but survival programming running on autopilot. They literally cannot see the impact of their behavior on others. Their psychological lens filters reality through a constant question, what's in it for me? Some takers are fully aware and strategic, deliberately manipulating others for gain. These are the true narcissists, the users, the emotional vampires we hear about. They view relationships as transactions where they must always come out ahead. The impact of a taker on a giver creates a particularly toxic dynamic. The giver keeps giving, hoping that eventually the taker will reciprocate or appreciate them. The taker keeps taking, interpreting the unlimited supply as confirmation they deserve it. Neither person addresses the imbalance until the giver reaches complete emotional bankruptcy. What's fascinating is that takers often don't recognize themselves as takers at all. They rationalize their behavior with justifications that make perfect sense to them. They believe they deserve what they take because of their circumstances or past suffering. This lack of self-awareness makes change almost impossible without intervention. But there's a third category that most people don't know about, the matchers. Matchers operate on fairness, keeping a mental ledger of give and take. They help others but expect roughly equivalent help in return over time. This might sound transactional, but it's actually psychologically healthy in many contexts. Matchers protect themselves from being exploited while still maintaining generosity. They understand that sustainable relationships require balance, not one-sided sacrifice. The problem with matchers? They can become overly focused on scorekeeping. They might withdraw help the moment they feel the balance tips against them. In close relationships, strict matching can feel cold and calculated rather than loving. Let's look at how these dynamics play out in real workplace situations. Imagine Sarah, a talented designer who always helps her colleagues with projects. She stays late fixing others' mistakes and shares her creative ideas freely. Mike, her coworker, regularly takes credit for Sarah's contributions in meetings. He frames her ideas as his own, absorbing recognition while she remains invisible. Sarah, being a compulsive giver, convinces herself that helping is its own reward. Meanwhile, Mike's career advances rapidly while Sarah remains stuck in the same position. This scenario repeats in offices worldwide, destroying talented givers while elevating strategic takers. The tragedy: Sarah's giving actually enables Mike's taking behavior. Friendship dynamics reveal these patterns even more clearly than professional relationships. Consider Emma, who's always available when her friend Jess needs emotional support. Emma listens for hours as Jess processes her relationship dramas and work frustrations. But when Emma tries to share her own struggles, Jess quickly changes the subject. Or worse, she minimizes Emma's problems by saying others have it worse. Jess isn't necessarily a bad person, she simply never learned reciprocal emotional labor. She takes Emma's support for granted, assuming it will always be available. Emma, meanwhile, feels increasingly lonely despite being in a close friendship. She wonders why she feels so empty after spending time with someone. These patterns don't appear randomly, they're rooted in our earliest experiences. Givers often come from environments where love was conditional on being helpful or good. They learned that their worth depended entirely on what they could provide others. Takers frequently experience scarcity, neglect, or inconsistent caregiving. They developed hypervigilance about getting their needs met before the opportunity disappeared. Matchers usually had relatively stable childhoods with clear fairness principles. Understanding these origins doesn't excuse harmful behavior, but it explains the patterns. More importantly, it shows us that these patterns can be changed with awareness. So how do you know which category you truly fall into? Ask yourself, in your relationships, do you consistently give more than you receive? Do you feel resentful after helping people, even though you initiated the help? Or do you find yourself mainly reaching out to others when you need something? Do you struggle to remember the last time you asked how someone else was doing? Perhaps you keep mental tabs on who owes you what in various relationships. There's no shame in any honest answer here, only opportunity for growth. Most people exhibit different patterns in different relationships and contexts. You might be a giver with friends, but a taker with your romantic partner, or a matcher at work, but a giver with family members. The goal isn't to become a perfect matcher or to stop giving entirely. The goal is conscious awareness and intentional choice in your interactions. If you're a chronic giver, start practicing the revolutionary act of receiving. Learn to accept help without immediately trying to repay it or feeling guilty. Set boundaries not as punishment, but as preservation of your ability to give sustainably. If you recognize taker tendencies, practice gratitude and reciprocity as deliberate exercises. Notice when someone gives to you and explicitly acknowledge it verbally. Challenge yourself to offer support before being asked at least once a week. For matchers, allow some relationships to exist without constant mental accounting. Recognize that true intimacy requires occasional imbalance in both directions. Here's the truth that changes everything about this entire discussion. The healthiest people aren't purely givers, takers, or even matchers. They're what psychologists call flexible reciprocators. They can give generously without keeping score when the relationship is healthy and reciprocal. They can receive graciously, recognizing that allowing others to give is itself a gift. And they can protect themselves by withdrawing investment from consistently one-sided dynamics. This flexibility requires emotional intelligence, self-awareness, and courage. It means sometimes disappointing people by saying no. It means sometimes asking for help when you'd rather suffer silently. But most importantly, it means relating to others from authenticity rather than unconscious patterns. So are you a giver or a taker? If you found yourself in this video, that awareness is the first step to change. The patterns that unconsciously controlled your relationships can now become conscious choices. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. And remember, the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your relationships. Make them conscious, make them balanced, make them authentic. I'll see you in the next video where we explore the psychology of boundaries.